Hello, I'm Robin Haley, and I'm in charge of Alan Carr's worldwide clinic network. I've personally helped thousands of smokers to quit. I chose this profession because I was a chain smoker for years. I really wanted to stop, but I couldn't. After countless failed attempts, I tried Alan Carr's method. It worked, it was easy, I've never missed it, and I've been a happy non-smoker ever since. We have here a group of people representing a wide range of smokers, and you'll see them from time to time, illustrating certain points as we go through the DVD. Stopping smoking is in fact easy. You just have to use the right method. You don't need willpower, you don't have to go through any trauma, you don't need to put on weight. Just relax. It's going to be fun. All you have to do is watch this DVD in one sitting with an open mind. Concentrate and follow the instructions. Make sure you're not going to be disturbed, turn off the telephone and remove any distractions. Make yourself comfortable, relax. Do you feel like having a cigarette? If so, go ahead. If you smoke roll-ups, cigars or a pipe, or chew or suck tobacco products, or take nicotine in any form, the same applies. Everything I'm about to tell you is true for all products which contain nicotine, and one of the great advantages of Easy Way is that you can continue to smoke while going through the process of stopping. By the end, you'll be happy to put out your final cigarette and become a non-smoker. Imagine for a moment this scene.
Look, this prison is not good for your health. Your wife and children are very worried about you. Just be sensible and get out of this place.
That doctor is clearly talking nonsense. But didn't he sound rather like a doctor trying to persuade a smoker to stop? Don't worry, I won't be using shock tactics. They don't work. Smokers aren't stupid. You know it's killing you and costing you a fortune. You've been told that often enough. It makes you want to stop, but it doesn't help you to do it. Does dieting make food less precious? No, more so. Also, stress makes you want to smoke. Tell a smoker it's killing them, the first thing they'll reach for is a cigarette. What the prisoner needs is not a lecture in the obvious, but the key to his prison. Smokers are in exactly the same position, and Alan Carr's method is the key. You feel trapped. You know you should stop, but that doesn't help you do it. Cigarettes are controlling your life. You feel like a slave. These are all reasons for stopping, but you don't smoke for the reasons you shouldn't smoke. You smoke for the reasons you do smoke. Once you realize that the reasons you smoke are illusions, then stopping will be easy. Of course, you could argue that whereas the prisoner in the cell has no choice, smokers choose to smoke. But do they? When did you choose to become a smoker? Do you choose to remain a smoker? Presumably not, since you're watching this. In fact, the vast majority of smokers admit they would rather be non-smokers, which means they're not choosing to smoke. Smoking is an addiction which denies freedom of choice. It enslaves the addict. The trap works in a similar way to a pitcher plant which feeds off flying insects. The plant gives off a scent which the insect finds irresistible. The inside of the plant is coated with a delicious nectar which the insect consumes. A combination of gravity and the lie of the hairs on the plant's surface ensure that the insect travels in one direction only, downwards, towards a pool of juices where other insects have already met their death. This doesn't bother the insect. After all, it has wings and can fly off whenever it wants to. However, the nectar is sticky and clings to its legs and wings, and by the time it's had its fill, it weighs twice as much. The more the insect struggles, the more trapped it becomes. The sides of the plant become steeper and steeper. The result is inevitable. You could argue that it chose to eat the nectar. No one forced it to. But did it choose to become trapped? Of course not. At what stage was the insect trapped? When it found it couldn't escape? No. That's just when it realized it was trapped. It was trapped from the moment it smelled the nectar. From that point on, it was being controlled by the plant and had no choice but to respond to its instincts. The pitcher plant is one of nature's ingenious confidence tricks, but it's nothing like as clever as the nicotine trap. No matter what stage you descend to, the nicotine trap makes you want to continue smoking, despite the fact that you also want to stop. No smoker chooses to smoke. We may have chosen to smoke the first experimental cigarettes, but nobody actually decides to become a smoker for life. We're lured into the trap and don't even realize we're hooked until we try to get free. All smokers hope their children won't start, which means they wish they hadn't started themselves. If you've ever made an attempt to quit, you're continuing to smoke not out of choice, but because that attempt failed. Given the choice, smokers would rather be non-smokers. So what's stopping them?
I can't enjoy a drink without a cigarette.
I get really uptight when I can't smoke.
I can't imagine enjoying a meal without a cigarette.
I panic if I'm running low on cigarettes.
I can't relax at a social occasion without a cigarette.
I need a cigarette to help me cope with the stresses and strains of life.
But whenever I've tried to stop, I've been miserable and irritable, and I can't concentrate.
I once stopped for 3 months, but the craving didn't go, and I know an ex-smoker who quit 5 years ago and is still dying for a cigarette. I'm afraid I'll suffer the craving for the rest of my life.
You do want to stop, but you think it's going to be hard and are afraid of failure. After all, you haven't succeeded yet. Perhaps you've already tried many times using nicotine substitutes like patches or gum, or acupuncture, hypnosis, or just plain willpower. But nothing seems to work. You may be convinced that it's got to be difficult, and may even be impossible. But that's only because you've gone about it the wrong way. If you try to stop without understanding why you smoke, then no matter how determined you are, your chances of succeeding are very slim indeed. So why do you smoke?
I need a cigarette to cope with stress.
I enjoy a cigarette when I'm relaxing.
It helps me concentrate.
It relieves boredom.
I like the taste.
I like the smell.
It's a social prop.
It's stylish and cool.
I like the ritual.
It's something to do with my hands.
It's oral satisfaction.
I like inhaling the smoke.
It's a crutch.
It's a pleasure.
It's company, a friend.
I feel miserable without cigarettes.
It's just a habit.
I've got an addictive personality.
I'm a nicotine addict.
I don't know.
If there are so many advantages to smoking, why do smokers want to stop?
It's bad for my health.
It's costing me a fortune.
It's filthy and disgusting.
It's controlling my life.
Bad breath.
The smell of my hair and clothes.
It's antisocial.
It's making me lethargic.
It's a bad example to my children.
Stained fingers.
Stained teeth.
Coughing and wheezing.
Lack of self-respect.
Slavery.
So there's a whole set of advantages and a whole set of disadvantages. Let's look at some of the advantages. Smokers give contradictory reasons for smoking.
I need a cigarette to cope with stress.
I enjoy a cigarette when I'm relaxing.
Stress and relaxation are complete opposites.
It helps me concentrate.
It relieves boredom.
Boredom and concentration are also complete opposites. What miraculous product can do for you 1 minute the complete opposite of what it did for you an hour earlier?
I like the taste.
Taste has nothing to do with it. You don't eat cigarettes. Even if you love the taste of lobster, you never reach the stage where you have to carry lobsters with you at all times.
I like the smell.
not spray your house with the delightful fragrance of cigarette smoke?
In fact, the awful smell is one of the reasons why smokers want to quit. Even if you love the smell of roses, that doesn't make you want to smoke them. And most smokers actually dislike the smell of other people's cigarettes.
It's a social prop.
Ashtray.
Yeah.
No one used to smoke, huh? I'll go outside.
In fact, smoking is nowadays increasingly being recognised as very antisocial, and this is one of the reasons smokers give for stopping.
I like the ritual.
Heroin addicts believe they enjoy the ritual of injecting themselves. They don't, it's just the way of delivering the drug into their body. And it's not to get a high, it's to relieve the low caused by the withdrawal from the previous fix. Smokers are in exactly the same position.
It's something to do with my hands.
It's oral satisfaction.
So why light it? You could save a fortune without damaging your health at all.
I like inhaling the smoke.
That's called suffocation. The worst thing about smoking is that you have to choke yourself to death in order to do it. So why is cigarette smoke so special? Because it contains nicotine, which is a highly addictive drug. I'll explain how nicotine addiction works shortly, but first, let's look at the other reasons smokers give.
It's just a habit.
I've got an addictive personality.
I'm a nicotine addict.
I don't know.
In fact, these aren't so much reasons for smoking as excuses for not having stopped. They tend to be used by longer-term smokers who sense they're not getting any genuine advantages, but still feel unable to quit.
It's a crutch.
It's a pleasure.
It's company, friend.
I feel miserable without cigarettes.
You still believe that smoking provides you with some genuine pleasure or crutch, and that by quitting you'd be losing a friend. And you know that on previous attempts to quit or cut down, you've been miserable. You therefore, quite understandably, have fears about stopping. These fears are the result of a lifetime's brainwashing. From birth, we're bombarded by information telling us that cigarettes relax us, relieve stress and boredom, and help us to concentrate. We're brainwashed into believing that we need them to cope with and enjoy life. Our subconscious is manipulated through marketing techniques, social images, and misconceptions. Smokers themselves, and even so-called experts, perpetuate these illusions. The result is, we don't even question them. On the other hand, we're also made aware of the terrible disadvantages of smoking. In fact, we're torn between two contradictory fears. On the one side, it's killing me, costing me a fortune, filthy, disgusting, and controlling my life. You try to block that bad side from your mind, but you never succeed. It's like a dark shadow, and while you're smoking, it just gets darker and darker, looms larger and larger. On the other side, how can I enjoy life or cope with stress without my little pleasure or crutch? You're frightened that if you stop smoking, you'll have to go through some terrible trauma, and that even if you do succeed, you may never be completely free from the desire to smoke. It never seems to dawn on the smoker that both these sets of fears are caused by smoking. Non-smokers suffer neither of them, and one of the greatest gains of being free is to end this constant battle. Once you understand the nicotine trap, then you'll see that all the reasons for smoking are illusions. You'll realise that far from being miserable as a non-smoker, you'll actually enjoy social occasions more and handle stress better. The whole object of this exercise is for you to enjoy being a non-smoker from the moment you quit. But first, you need to understand more about drug addiction. Which of these drugs do you think is most addictive? Alcohol? Cannabis? Cocaine? Heroin? Crack? No. The nicotine contained in tobacco is the most addictive drug known to mankind. The good news is that although nicotine is highly addictive, the physical withdrawal is very slight. So slight, in fact, that most smokers don't even recognise it as drug addiction. There's no physical pain. In fact, it's identical to the feeling of a hunger for food and to the feeling caused by normal stress. But even heavy smokers can go for long periods without smoking and scarcely even be aware of it, on planes, for example. And it's not strong enough to wake you up at night. What's more, it gets no worse when you stop. Smokers think of withdrawal as the trauma they suffer when they try to quit by using willpower. But that's not physical, that's mental, and Easy Way removes it even before you extinguish your final cigarette. Nicotine is the colourless, oily compound contained in tobacco that addicts smokers. It's a deadly poison, and it's sold commercially as an insecticide. If you were to inject the nicotine content of just one cigarette into a vein, it would kill you. Every puff on a cigarette delivers to the brain via the lungs a small dose of nicotine that acts faster than a dose of heroin injected into a vein. Nicotine is a quick-acting drug, and levels in the bloodstream fall by about 50% 2 hours after extinguishing a cigarette. This is why most smokers average about 20 a day. As nicotine leaves the body, you experience an empty, insecure feeling, a tenseness or edginess, which I'll refer to as the itch. Smokers believe they only suffer withdrawal symptoms when they try to quit. On the contrary, they suffer them all their smoking lives. Just as we only know hunger for food as I want or need to eat, so we only know the itch as I want or need a cigarette. Most smokers can remember their first cigarette was foul. But by smoking that cigarette, you have now put a highly addictive drug into your body, and a disagreeable little character takes up residence inside you. Let's call it the little monster. This is the first of several factors that reduce a smoker's level of well-being throughout their lives. Here's a barometer showing your well-being. When you're having a great day, you're up here. When it's a terrible day, you're down here. Let's assume that when you smoke your very first cigarette, you're having a good day. Once you extinguish the cigarette, you start to experience the itch, an almost imperceptible, empty, insecure feeling, which smokers only know as, I need something to do with my hands, or I want or need a cigarette. This is in fact nicotine withdrawal. It's the little monster inside your body demanding to be fed. And your well-being drops to a lower level. If you light another cigarette within that withdrawal period, the empty, insecure feeling is immediately replaced by a feeling of satisfaction and confidence. This is not an illusion. You will actually feel more relaxed or less stressed than you did a moment before, because you have now replaced the nicotine and fed the little monster. Your level of well-being will immediately go up. The second cigarette tastes just as foul as the first, and you'll remain convinced that you could never get hooked. But you've taken the bait. What you've actually enjoyed is trying to get back to the level of well-being you had as a non-smoker. This simple confidence trick is what hooks all smokers. You may have noticed that the smoker never quite reaches the level they were at before they started smoking. This is because nicotine is a powerful drug and a poison. Our bodies build an immunity to both. Immunity is a two-edged sword. It helps protect you from the poisonous effects, but it also means that the nicotine withdrawal is only partially relieved even when you smoke a cigarette. And the empty, insecure feeling is never completely removed. So even when you're smoking a cigarette, you actually feel more nervous and less relaxed than when you were a non-smoker. That's why, although your conscious brain knows that you should smoke less and less, the tendency is to smoke more and more. After you finish the cigarette, the level of nicotine in your body falls again, and the little monster soon demands another fix. And so it goes on and on and on. This process simply repeats itself. The only reason any smoker lights a cigarette is to feed that little monster and try to relieve the aggravation caused by the previous cigarette. It's like wearing tight shoes just to get the pleasure of taking them off. There are several reasons why smokers find it difficult to see it like this. Remember, the empty feeling is indistinguishable from hunger and normal stress and is almost imperceptible. There's no physical pain whatsoever. Our brain is therefore fooled into believing that the empty feeling is caused by the stresses of life, whereas in fact it's caused by the withdrawal from the previous cigarette. We only know the feeling as I want or need a cigarette. The moment we light up, we do immediately feel more relaxed, less stressed, and better able to concentrate. So the cigarette gets the credit for relieving the feeling, but not the blame for causing it in the first place. Another major factor which lowers the smoker's well-being is the disadvantages of smoking. Of course, smokers try to block these from their minds.
I could be hit by a bus tomorrow.
But would you deliberately step into its path?
I think exhaust fumes cause more damage than smoking.
But would you put your mouth over an exhaust pipe and deliberately inhale the fumes? As a smoker, you not only suffer the harmful effects of pollution, but also the much more harmful effects of smoking.
I can afford to smoke.
Well, good for you, but isn't it a bit stupid to set light to £50,000? After all, that's what the average British smoker spends on cigarettes in their lifetime. Possibly the worst aspect on the health side is not the risk of killer diseases like lung cancer. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not belittling those diseases, but all our smoking lives, we block them from our mind, promising ourselves we'll quit tomorrow. It's like a time bomb ticking away. We hope that it'll never happen, or that by some miracle we'll have quit before it does. But the moment we start smoking, we're not only congesting our lungs with tars and other poisons, we're also systematically and progressively gunging up our blood vessels. We're starving every muscle and organ in our body of oxygen and the vital minerals which we need to enjoy our lives to the full. Because this deterioration happens gradually, we aren't even aware of it. It's like growing old. It's not until we see a photograph taken 10 years earlier that we notice the difference. Provided you keep fit and healthy, this aging process need not adversely affect the quality of your life. But regularly poisoning your body does affect it. You become breathless, permanently lethargic, and wake up feeling tired even after a full night's sleep. And the vital parts of your body which are most affected by this poisoning and starvation are your heart, your brain, and your immune system. How can your brain concentrate properly if it's not only being distracted by withdrawal, but also starved of oxygen? Did you know that smoking coagulates your blood? How can you expect your heart to continue to pump increasingly coagulated blood through increasingly restricted blood vessels? The miracle is not that smokers have heart attacks and multiple bypass operations, but that our bodies can survive the poisoning at all. It says much for the incredible strength of the human body. If we treated our cars like our bodies, they'd be scrapped within a year. Yet amazingly, once you stop smoking, the body purges the vast bulk of accumulated filth and poison within just a few weeks. In addition to this physical deterioration, smoking destroys your self-confidence and self-respect. You realize you're not in control. Cigarettes are controlling you. You're not just smoking when you choose to. You've got to have them. And even the thought of not having them sends you into a panic. As your wheezing, coughing, and lethargy increase, the cancer scares become dark shadows looming at the back of your mind, and you realize that you're a slave to the cigarette. This gradual physical and mental deterioration combine to reduce your level of well-being as you go through life. The low, therefore, gets lower and lower, and the high that you come back to every time you light a cigarette goes down in proportion. It's an endless cycle that causes the victim to go in one direction only, downwards. If only smokers could remember how they felt before they fell into the trap, and realize how great they'll feel when they escape. A smoker will always feel less happy on a good day and more stressed on a bad day than a non-smoker. You smoke purely and simply to feed the little monster, because if you don't, you start feeling uptight. The good news is that this little monster is easy to kill. All you have to do is stop smoking and stop taking nicotine in any form, and it dies very quickly. What's more, the physical withdrawal is so slight that providing you use this method, it'll scarcely bother you at all. Once you've understood and accepted that you're making no sacrifice whatsoever, and that therefore you're not being deprived of anything because cigarettes do nothing for you, then you'll be able to return to the state you were in before you started smoking, and you'll become a happy non-smoker. But perhaps you're still not convinced that smoking does nothing for you whatsoever. So let's remove the remaining illusions.
It relaxes you.
It relieves boredom.
It helps you concentrate.
It helps your self-confidence.
Let's look at these arguments one by one.
Wasn't that a great massage? Yeah, but I could really do with a cigarette right now.
In fact, it's the complete opposite. It makes you feel uptight, irritable, and nervous. When you should feel relaxed, you experience withdrawal symptoms if you can't smoke. So you smoke in order to try to get rid of that withdrawal. In fact, you smoke in order to feel as relaxed as a non-smoker, who of course never suffers the withdrawal in the first place. Get it clearly into your mind. The cigarette does not relieve the panic feeling, it causes it. In a bored state, you have nothing to take your mind off the itch of the little monster in your body craving nicotine. So you feel the need to scratch it. But scratching the itch doesn't relieve the boredom. When you're smoking, you're hardly thinking, This is fascinating, are you? We're so obsessed with smoking, and it takes up so much of our time, that we often neglect activities which are genuinely stimulating. In fact, the lethargy and apathy which result from smoking are primary causes of boredom.
Well, you're ideally qualified for this job in every way. However, it requires a high level of concentration. As you know, cigarettes help with concentration, and I notice you're a non-smoker. So, unless you're prepared to start smoking, I'm afraid I cannot offer you the job.
That situation is clearly absurd, but it wouldn't be if smoking genuinely improved concentration. If you were being distracted by noise, hunger, or anything else, you'd need to remove that distraction in order to concentrate. When the little monster is demanding to be fed, you're actually being distracted. You're permanently more anxious as a smoker because you have the little monster demanding its fix. Cigarettes destroy your nervous system and make you feel insecure. They undermine your self-respect and self-confidence. Once your body has stopped withdrawing from nicotine and the brainwashing has been removed, you'll be more relaxed, less bored, better able to concentrate, and have more self-confidence. However, it's absolutely essential for you first to understand that cigarettes do not give you any genuine crutch. Imagine it's the morning of a visit to the dentist. This is a common stressful event for many people. If you don't find this stressful, just imagine another event that you do find stressful, such as the job interview or an important meeting. We're going to analyse the stress levels of a smoker, Jack, and a non-smoker, Ian, under these circumstances. For convenience, we will assume that they both feel equally stressed about the visit to the dentist, and we will ignore all other stresses in their lives. We will assume that their lives are identical in all ways, apart from the fact that one smokes and the other does not. Jack and Ian are suffering equal stress from the impending visit to the dentist. This stress is represented by the blue bar. But Jack hasn't smoked all night, and the little monster is demanding its fix. So he is suffering an additional layer of stress, represented by the red bar. Jack doesn't realise he has this extra stress caused by smoking. On the contrary, he believes that smoking relieves stress. When he lights up, he partially relieves the stress of the nicotine withdrawal. They're not allowed to smoke at the dentist. This doesn't bother Ian, but it does bother Jack, as he can no longer feed the little monster. The checkup goes fine for both Jack and Ian, and the stress they were suffering because of it has gone. But Jack's little monster is demanding its fix, so he's still uptight. Even when Jack lights up, he's less relaxed than Ian because the cigarette only partially relieves the feeling. Be clear that the stress meter is merely meant to illustrate that the little monster will cause smokers to be more stressed and less relaxed at all times than if they were non-smokers. But remember that the true position is far worse. The real stress that smokers suffer is not the physical withdrawal itself. Fortunately, that's almost imperceptible, which is why it's easy to quit. But a far greater stress is caused by the frustration of wanting a cigarette and not being allowed to have one, just like not being allowed to scratch an itch. And at some of the most stressful periods in smokers' lives, like visits to hospitals and flying on planes, not to mention when they're at work, smokers aren't allowed to smoke. Also bear in mind that the general level of stress is increasingly being raised by the other disadvantages of smoking, such as the effects on your physical and mental well-being. In fact, smoking doesn't help you to cope with the stresses and strains of life. On the contrary, it causes the very stress that smokers believe it relieves. You're a slave to the little monster who's constantly demanding its nicotine fix and making you feel insecure. Many smokers reach the stage where they cannot perform simple mental or physical acts without first lighting up. The physical addiction has confirmed the illusions of the brainwashing. We believe we can't cope with life or enjoy life without cigarettes. The truth is that the only pleasure you get when you light up is to feel as relaxed as a non-smoker. Because you do feel better when you light up, you're fooled into believing that you get a genuine pleasure or crutch. Think of that panic feeling when you're getting low on cigarettes. Non-smokers don't suffer that feeling. It's the drug leaving the body that causes it. See it as it really is. The cigarette doesn't relieve the empty feeling. The first cigarette started it, and each subsequent cigarette has simply perpetuated it. So you've fallen into the trap of nicotine addiction. When do you think you fell into it? Let's go back to that first cigarette. As long as you weren't enjoying it, you thought, I won't get hooked. But you were hooked long before you realized. You should now realize that in fact cigarettes provide you with no genuine pleasure or crutch whatsoever. Smoking does not relax you or relieve stress or boredom, nor does it help you to concentrate. The advantages of smoking are all illusions. These illusions are being removed and the brainwashing is disappearing. Once we've removed one side of the tug of war in your mind, then you don't need willpower to quit, because all your will is directed against the cigarette, instead of this constant conflict of will. Here's a new drug which you might like to try. I must warn you that it's highly addictive. You'll become addicted straight away, and you may remain so for the rest of your life. I'll give you the first fix for nothing, but then I'll start to charge you. I warn you that whatever the cost, you'll find the money. It's a powerful poison, and you'll have a 50% chance of dying as a direct result of your addiction. In any case, you'll become more lethargic, short of breath, and less resistant to all sorts of diseases. There's bad breath, stained teeth, wheezing, coughing, and social stigma. It'll not only destroy you physically, but also attacks your nervous system, undermining your confidence and self-respect. And you, an otherwise strong, intelligent, healthy, and attractive human being, will end up despising yourself for being the slave to something you yourself detest. Ironically, the more the drug destroys you, the more you'll be fooled into believing it's your last little pleasure or crutch, and the more dependent you'll feel on it. Oh, and by the way, it'll taste awful. Now, the advantages, what will this drug do for you? Nothing. Not one single thing. It won't even give you a high. So, can I persuade you to try some? Now you can see the cigarette for what it really is. It's time to stop letting yourself be conned. Intelligent people fall for an ingenious confidence trick, but only a fool continues to fall for it after they can see through it. However, as smokers, we think of certain cigarettes as particularly special, and the thought of being deprived of these can be very worrying. So let's look at these so-called special cigarettes. The only reason the first cigarette in the morning seems special is because you've gone all night without one. So the relief from nicotine withdrawal seems that much more precious. But non-smokers don't have this problem when they wake up. This cigarette during a break is special because it's time out to relax from your usual activities. But you can't relax without the cigarette because you feel the need to relieve your nicotine withdrawal. Non-smokers don't have this problem. They're relaxed at these times without a cigarette. Smokers believe a cigarette gives them an excuse for a break and fear that when they quit, they won't be able to take breaks. The fact is, smokers need breaks in order to feed their nicotine addiction, otherwise they get uptight. As a non-smoker, you can enjoy as many breaks as a smoker without poisoning yourself or being forced out into the rain or freezing cold to get your fix. It's often more difficult to relax and concentrate while on the phone. As a smoker, you're less relaxed and less able to concentrate when you're withdrawing from nicotine, and because you're being distracted by your craving. So you feel the need to smoke. But non-smokers don't have this problem when they answer the phone. Nor did you before you started smoking. And nor will you when you're free.
Listen,
yes,
do you want me to go to the shops?
When do you want to meet up?
You should be particularly relaxed after exercise, but you won't be completely relaxed because of the need to feed the little nicotine monster. Non-smokers don't have this problem, and you too can look forward to enjoying those moments of relaxation after exercise without needing to choke yourself to death. The favourite cigarette for most smokers is the one with a drink or after a meal. It's simply that at these times you should be completely relaxed. Work is over, you're sitting down, you've relieved your hunger for food, quenched your thirst. You often have pleasant company and nothing to do except enjoy yourself. Look again at our barometer of well-being. On an occasion like this, non-smokers will be on a high. If you're a smoker and can smoke, you'll also feel on a high, though in reality, you're below a non-smoker. But if you can't smoke, you'll be utterly miserable. So in this situation, the difference between having a cigarette or not is the difference between feeling on a high or feeling miserable. This is the real reason the nicotine monster is so powerful, and why smokers go to extraordinary lengths to get their nicotine fix. Non-smokers don't have this problem, and you'll enjoy these occasions far more once you're free. These particular cigarettes also feel special because in each case you've not had one for some time, and so the relief from withdrawal seems more precious. In fact, it's never the cigarettes themselves that are special, they're always identical. It's the situations you're in that change your perception. When you feed the monster, you associate the relief with the particular cigarette and the situation you're in, which intensifies the brainwashing that you can't enjoy these situations without smoking. In reality, you'll enjoy them far more once you're free. If you still believe that you do enjoy smoking, light one up now, take 6 deep puffs on it, analyse the feeling, and ask yourself what you're enjoying about it. Once you've understood that smoking gives you no genuine pleasure or crutch whatsoever, you'll suffer no feelings of deprivation when you stop. So why do smokers find it such a trauma trying to stop on the willpower method? They know the disadvantages of smoking outweigh the advantages, and that they'd be better off as non-smokers. But because they don't understand the nicotine trap, they still believe that smoking provides them with a genuine pleasure or crutch, and that they're making a sacrifice. They force themselves into a self-imposed tantrum, like a child being deprived of its sweets. They hope that if they can endure the misery of the tantrum for long enough, time will heal the wound, the craving will go, and they'll be free. However, in the vast majority of cases, this approach fails, as the ex-smoker feels deprived, miserable, and irritable, to the point where life as a non-smoker seems intolerable. Because the empty, insecure feeling caused by the little monster is indistinguishable from hunger and normal stress, and because ex-smokers continue to experience hunger and normal stress after they've quit, they often interpret those feelings in their mind as, "I want a cigarette," even after the little monster has disappeared. And so they're never sure whether they've kicked it. And even if they do manage to stop permanently, they're often left moping for a cigarette at certain times for the rest of their lives. Alan Carr's method uses the opposite approach, changing your perception of cigarettes even before you stop, so that afterwards you don't miss them. Smokers often try to cut down because they can't face stopping completely, but it doesn't work. You don't allow yourself to light up whenever you want to, so you're suffering the craving most of the time and waiting to smoke. Now your whole life is dominated by the next cigarette, which seems the most precious thing on earth, and you usually end up smoking more than you did before. All the so-called special cigarettes seem to be after a period of abstinence. The first in the morning, after a meal, after work, after exercise, after sex, etc. This is because the only actual pleasure or crutch smokers receive when they light up is not the cigarette itself, but the ending of the aggravation of craving it. Just like a hunger for food, the longer you suffer it, the greater the pleasure when you finally relieve it. So the less we smoke, the greater the illusion of pleasure. Far from helping you to escape from the trap, cutting down keeps you a slave for life. And smokers make the mistake of thinking it's just a habit. They think, if I can get into the habit of just smoking a few a day, after a while I'll get used to that. You need to get it clearly into your mind, smoking is not a habit, it's drug addiction. If it was simply a habit, you would have already broken it. Perhaps you think habits are hard to break. They're not. In Britain, we're in the habit of driving on the left, but have no problem switching to the right when abroad. Furthermore, the nature of drug addiction is to want more and more, not less and less. Fortunately, the addiction is also easy to break, providing you understand the nature of the trap. You now have all the information you need to stop smoking easily, painlessly, and permanently. Provided you've understood the nicotine trap and realized that cigarettes do absolutely nothing for you at all. And let me make this clear, I don't simply mean the disadvantages of smoking outweigh the advantages. That's obvious. I mean you've realized that there are no advantages, no genuine pleasure or crutch whatsoever. Then you're ready to follow the instructions that'll make it easy for you to quit. The brainwashing has been reversed. Your perceptions have changed. The illusions you had about smoking have gone, and you now see cigarettes for what they really are. You thought they were your friend, but in fact, they're your worst enemy. Get it clearly into your mind, there's nothing to give up. The pleasure, crutch, relaxation, stress relief, prop, reward or friend you thought smoking gave you were illusions. Smoking is simply drug addiction. You're not making any sacrifice whatsoever, so there's no reason to feel deprived. You didn't enjoy being a smoker, that's why you've decided to stop. You're achieving what every smoker would love to achieve, freedom. You're making marvellous positive gains in health, energy, money, self-respect, confidence, and most importantly of all, in the length and quality of your future life. and you're losing nothing at all. This is one of those rare situations where there's absolutely no downside whatsoever and a huge upside. So approach the process of stopping not with doom or gloom, but with a marvellous feeling of excitement, a sense of relief that the whole filthy nightmare is finally over, and a feeling of elation that you're now finally free. Enjoy being a non-smoker right from the start. I would like you now to smoke your very last and final cigarette. You need to make a solemn vow that you'll never smoke another cigarette, cigar, pipe, or take tobacco or nicotine in any form ever again. This is one of the most important decisions you'll ever make. The length and quality of your future life critically depend on it, and there can't be anything more important to you than that. Unlike other vital decisions we make, such as what we do for a living, we can never be certain that they're correct, because we can never know what would have happened if we'd done something else. The beauty of the decision you're making now is that you know it's correct even as you make it. Having made what you know to be the correct decision, never ever even begin to question or doubt it, because it's only the questioning or doubting of that decision that can possibly make it difficult for you to stop. Don't avoid smoking situations. Go out, handle stress, and enjoy meals, drinks, and social occasions right from the start. Remember, you're not being deprived. You haven't given up living. In fact, you haven't given up anything. Smokers are being deprived of their health, energy, money, peace of mind, self-respect, confidence, and freedom. They are drug addicts. Observe them, particularly at social occasions. Notice how they're only comfortable while they're smoking subconsciously. When they become aware of their smoking, they're uncomfortable, self-conscious, and defensive. Notice how quickly they extinguish each cigarette and automatically light up the next one. Casual smokers will smoke 5 in front of you. You say, "I thought you only smoked 5 a day." They say, "Well, parties are different." It's always different. Smokers lie not only to other people, but also to themselves. Just remember that when a smoker leaves your company, they have got to continue smoking. The next day when their chest feels like a cesspit, the next cancer scare, the next budget day, the next time they're in the company of non-smokers, the next time they're not allowed to smoke, the next time their family gives them that haunted look, the next time they feel completely stupid. They've got to spend the rest of their lives paying a fortune to risk horrendous diseases, to suffer a lifetime of mental and physical slavery. The bad breath, the stained teeth, the wheezing, the coughing, the lethargy, the social stigma, being despised by the rest of the population. But worst of all, otherwise intelligent, attractive, healthy, rational human beings despising themselves because they're the slave to something they themselves detest. And all for what? What do they actually get in return for this life of misery? Nothing. Not one single thing. They're just trying to get back to that state of peace and tranquility they had before they lit the first cigarette. The state that non-smokers enjoy their entire lives. And the one thing that's preventing them from actually reaching that state is the next cigarette itself. Don't envy them. Pity them. They'll be envying you, because they'll be wishing they could be like you, a non-smoker, free from the whole filthy nightmare. Remember, your body will continue to withdraw from nicotine over the next few days, but this doesn't mean you have to be miserable. On the contrary, enjoy the process right from the start. You've been the slave of this little monster for years. Now it's your turn to be the master as you enjoy starving it to death. The little monster is searching for a fix, and you're simply going to let it die. If you're aware of the feeling at all, you'll only know it as a little empty, insecure feeling, a feeling of not knowing what to do with your hands, or simply the feeling of, I want a cigarette. It's essential that you stop thinking of it as, I want a cigarette, and recognize it for what it is, your body withdrawing from nicotine. And if or when it comes, instead of saying to yourself, I want a cigarette but I can't have one, simply say to yourself, this is the little monster wanting its fix. This is nicotine withdrawal. This is what smokers suffer their entire smoking lives. This is what keeps them smoking. Fortunately, non-smokers don't suffer this little empty, insecure feeling of the body withdrawing from nicotine. Isn't it marvellous? I am a non-smoker, and so I'll soon be free of it, never to suffer it again. That way the withdrawal pangs cease to be withdrawal pangs and become positive moments of pleasure. That way it can be like when you leave the dentist. Your jaw might still have a slight dull ache in it, but that doesn't bother you in the slightest because you know it'll soon go. That part of your life is over. You're ready to get on with enjoying the rest of your life. Don't fall for the trap of thinking, just one cigarette. One cigarette would revive the little monster and create the need for another, and another, and another. Nicotine is an addictive drug, whether in tobacco or in the form of nicotine products, such as chewing gums, patches, nasal sprays, inhalators, or anything else. These substitutes simply prolong the addiction. It's like telling a heroin addict who's smoking heroin off foil to start injecting it instead. Nicotine addicts used to sniff powdered tobacco up their noses. It was called snuff. And in Scandinavia, they suck on small pouches of tobacco called snus to get their fix. Taking the drug in a different way just keeps you addicted. And don't use any other substitutes either, such as normal chewing gum, chocolates, sweets or biscuits. The empty, insecure feeling of the body withdrawing from nicotine is identical to the feeling of a hunger for food, but one does not satisfy the other. All substitutes make it more difficult to stop because they perpetuate the illusion that you're making a sacrifice. Do you need a substitute when you get over flu? Do you look around for another disease to take its place? Of course not. Don't worry if you find yourself eating a little more at main meals over the next few days as a result of a better appetite. Even if you do put on a few pounds, you'll find that once you've kicked smoking with this method, you'll be able to lose that weight if you want to. But you must not start picking between meals. If you do, not only will you get miserable, but you won't be certain whether or not you've kicked the cigarette. You'll have moved the problem rather than removed it. It's another form of substitution. The reason many smokers do put on weight with other methods is that they feel deprived and search for something to fill the void. With this method, you won't feel deprived, so you'll have no need to substitute. Don't keep cigarettes on you or anywhere else in case of an emergency. If you do, it means you're doubting your decision. You're a non-smoker. Non-smokers don't need cigarettes, and that's one of the great joys of being free. Don't try to block your mind from smoking. It doesn't work. Just make sure that when you do think about it, you're not thinking, I want one but I can't have one. Make sure you're thinking, great, I'm a non-smoker. If you follow those simple instructions, there'll be a moment over the next few days which you thought you couldn't handle or couldn't enjoy without a cigarette, and it'll suddenly dawn on you that it never even occurred to you to smoke. That's the marvellous moment when you realise you're free. But don't wait for it to happen or try to force it, because if you do, you'll create a phobia in your mind. All you really have to do is accept there's nothing to give up, make your decision, never ever again, and get on with enjoying the rest of your life as a non-smoker. Life will soon go back to normal, and you'll accept that you're a non-smoker. But be on your guard.
Oh, I haven't had a cigarette in 6 months now. Guess one won't hurt.
The tobacco companies want to get you hooked again, and other smokers are always trying to justify what they know is their own stupidity and inadequacy. If your brain ever starts playing tricks on you by thinking, just one cigarette, remember, there's no such thing. Just one cigarette, cigar, or anything containing tobacco or nicotine, and you'll fall back into the nicotine trap. There's only one essential to remaining a non-smoker, and that's not to smoke. The moment you light a cigarette, you become a smoker again. So the question you need to ask is not, shall I have a cigarette? It's, do I want to become a smoker again? The answer is clearly no, because you didn't enjoy being a smoker, and you do enjoy being a non-smoker. That way, those moments can become pleasurable, as you congratulate yourself that you're free, and that way, you can remain a happy non-smoker for the rest of your life. You're now free. Congratulations. Remember, every smoker would love to be in your position. Never doubt your decision. You know it's the right one. If you have any problems or questions, please contact your nearest Alan Carr clinic, details of which you'll find on the menu. You can now enjoy the rest of your life as a happy non-smoker. Goodbye.